Alien fury. You locked up human children. Have you lost your mind? The chamber was silent except for the sound of chains. The air was heavy, cold, and filled with the smell of iron and fear. In the center of the alien courtroom stood a row of cages. Inside those cages, human children sat huddled together. Some of them were crying softly, their small hands gripping the metal bars. Others stared with wide eyes, too frightened even to speak. Their voices were low, whispers broken by sobs, but the silence around them made those sounds echo like thunder. The guards who stood nearby were not human. They were tall, scaled beings with sharp faces and glowing eyes. Their armor reflected the dim lights of the chamber, but even behind their helmets, their unease was clear. They did not look proud of their work. They did not look like soldiers guarding a victory. They looked like creatures who knew they had made a mistake too large to take back. The doors of the chamber opened with a loud crack. A figure stepped inside. He was not like the others. His armor was darker, heavier, and his presence pulled all attention toward him. The guards bowed quickly, lowering their heads, but their hands trembled. They knew who had entered. He was a leader among them, a commander whose voice could break armies and whose fury could end rulers. The children shrank back in their cages, but the leader did not even look at them at first. His gaze went straight to the guards. The silence deepened. No one dared to move. His voice, when it came, was slow and controlled, but it carried a power that shook the air. "Who," he said, each word sharp, "gave the order to imprison human children?" No answer came. The guards remained still, their eyes darting from one to another. They hoped someone else would speak, but none of them dared. The silence stretched, heavy like a blade hanging in the air. The leader stepped closer. His armor gleamed under the dim lights, and his shadow fell across the cages. The children pressed closer together, their breathing quick, their eyes following him with fear. "You locked up human children," he repeated, his voice rising. "Have you lost your mind?" The words cracked like thunder across the chamber. The guards flinched. Even the walls seemed to echo his fury. The children began to cry louder now, their voices mixing with the heavy silence. The leader's expression was unreadable, but his eyes burned. It was not only anger. It was fear of what this act would bring. One guard, unable to hold back, finally spoke. His voice shook as he tried to explain. "Commander!" It was not us. It was the council. They demanded it. They wanted proof that humans were weak. They wanted to break their pride. The leader turned slowly, his gaze sharp enough to cut stone. "Weak?" he said. His voice dropped lower, colder. "You think locking up children proves strength? You think this is victory?" The guard's voice broke into silence. His hands gripped his weapon, but he lowered his eyes. There was no defense. There could be no defense. The leader walked closer to the cages. He looked at the children at last. Small faces, pale and frightened. Some of them were no older than 5 or 6 years. Their eyes were filled with fear, but beneath the fear there was something else. Something quiet but dangerous. A spark that even the leader recognized. He had seen that look before, not in children, but in soldiers standing at the edge of battle, waiting for the fight to begin. He stepped back, his breath slow, controlled. His mind was racing. The council had gone too far. This was no simple cruelty. This was a declaration of war. Humans could forgive many things, but not this. Never this. He turned back to the guards, his voice louder now, his fury clear. "Do you fools understand what you have done? Humans are not like us. Threaten their children and you do not weaken them. You wake something in them that does not stop. Do you want their fleets to rise from the dark? Do you want their soldiers to march through our worlds?" The guards stared, frozen. None spoke. They all felt the weight of his words. They had heard the old stories, the stories of human fury, of wars that ended with ashes and silence. Some thought those were myths, but looking at the commander now, seeing the fire in his eyes, they realized the myths were warnings. The children's crying slowed. They watched the leader with cautious eyes. He was not like the others. His words carried anger, but not toward them. His voice was not cruel. It was something else. Something that made even the children understand that this figure, this alien, was not their enemy tonight. The leader's voice cut once more through the chamber. "Release them now!" No one moved. Fear rooted them to the ground. The guards looked at one another, unsure if they dared disobey the council's orders. The leader took a step forward, and his voice became a roar. "Release them!" At once, soldiers rushed to the cages. Their hands fumbled with the locks. Metal scraped against metal as the doors creaked open. The children did not move at first. They clung to one another, afraid it was a trick. But the leader stood tall, his back straight, his gaze fixed on the guards. He would not allow harm to touch them again. When the last cage opened, silence filled the room once more. The children stepped out slowly, their eyes wide. Some of them reached for one another's hands. Others looked up at the leader. Their fear had not vanished, but it had changed. Now there was something else, something like hope. The leader's chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. He knew this was only the beginning. The council had planted a seed of war, and soon the galaxy would feel the storm. But for now, he had done what he could. He had stopped the madness, at least for one night. And in the cold silence of that alien courtroom, a question hung in the air, unanswered but certain. What will humans do when they learn that their children had been caged? The discovery. The night after the cages were opened, the alien leader did not rest. He walked the long halls of the citadel, his heavy boots echoing against the steel floors. His mind was a storm. The children had been freed, but the damage had already been done. Word would spread. Humans would learn of this crime, and when they did, the galaxy would tremble. He entered the council chamber, a vast hall with high ceilings and walls glowing faintly with the light of alien crystals. The council members were waiting. They sat on tall thrones, cloaked in ceremonial robes that covered their scaled forms. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, cold and unfeeling. The leader stood before them, his voice steady but sharp. "You made a mistake. Imprisoning human children is not victory. It is suicide." The head of the council, an elder with silver scales, tilted his head. His voice was slow, smooth, but poisoned with arrogance. "You speak of humans as if they are gods. They are only flesh. They bleed, they die like every other race. We wanted to test them. We wanted to show the galaxy that they can be broken." The leader's jaw tightened. "Test them? You call this a test? You caged their young. You touched what no one dares to touch. Do you not know their history? Do you not remember what happens when humans are provoked?" Another counselor leaned forward, his eyes gleaming. "Stories, myths, humans are no different than the rest of us. Their wars, their victories, they are exaggerated tales told to make them appear greater than they are. You have allowed fear to cloud your mind." The leader's hands clenched into fists. He wanted to shout, but he forced himself to speak with calm fury. "Fear no, knowledge. I fought in the border wars. I saw what humans do when their people are threatened. They fight with madness in their eyes. They do not stop. They do not bend. They burn worlds to save their own." The chamber grew quiet. Even the arrogant voices fell silent at the edge of his words. The leader stepped closer to the council table. His shadow stretched long across the polished floor. "And now you have given them a reason to rise again. You thought to break them. You have only awakened them." The council remained still, but in the silence, one young member shifted nervously. His claws tapped against the armrest of his throne. "What if they find out?" he asked softly. The leader turned to him, his eyes blazing. "They will find out. Do you think secrets survive in the dark? Do you think the cries of children do not echo across the stars? Even now, whispers will travel. Traders, spies, servants, they will carry the truth. And when humans hear it, their ships will rise." The young counselor looked down, his scales dull with fear. The elder slammed his hand against the table, his voice harsh. "Enough! We are not cowards hiding from fairy tales. If humans want war, let them bring it. We are prepared." The leader shook his head slowly. "No, you are not prepared. None of you are." He turned from the council chamber and walked into the night. His chest was heavy with anger and dread. Outside, the sky above the city was alive with lights. Ships moving across the dark, their engines glowing like falling stars. The world seemed calm, but he could feel it in the air. The calm would not last. That same night, far beyond the council's reach, a trader ship drifted through the void. Its crew whispered of what they had seen, human children, chained and crying in the prisons of the Scaled Council. The story spread like fire. From one ship to another, from one system to the next, the rumor became louder, sharper, and then it reached human ears. On a quiet colony world at the edge of human space, a message arrived. The people gathered around the transmission, their faces pale as the words played through the static. Human children, imprisoned by the Scaled Council. The crowd grew silent. Mothers held their children closer. Fathers clenched their fists. Soldiers stared with cold eyes, their jaws set in iron. The colony leader, an old veteran with scars across his face, whispered words that carried like a storm. "They caged our children." The room shook with the roar of voices. Rage, hot and alive, filled the air. The message traveled again, carried on human networks, bouncing between colonies and stations until it reached the core worlds. By the time it arrived on Earth itself, it was no longer a whisper. It was a firestorm. The alien leader's fears had come true. Humans knew, and humans would answer. Back in the Citadel, the leader stood on the balcony of his quarters, staring at the stars. His thoughts were heavy, his heart dark with certainty. He had tried to warn them, but the Council had not listened. The Council thought themselves untouchable. They thought humans were myths. But myths, he knew, were only truths too dangerous to face. He whispered into the night words no one else could hear. "They will come, and when they come, no wall will stop them." Far away in the silence of space, the first human warship stirred from its dock. The warning, the Council chamber was filled again. This time the air was heavier. Rumors had already reached them, whispers carried on trader ships, fragments of human messages leaking into alien channels. The words were simple but terrifying. "They caged our children." The alien leader stood before the Council once more. His armor was scarred from old battles, but his voice carried sharper edges than any blade. He did not ask for permission to speak. He did not bow. He faced them as if facing fools who stood too close to the edge of a cliff. "You wanted proof of human weakness," he began. His voice was deep, echoing in the silent chamber. "Now you will have proof of something else, proof of their fury." Some of the councillors shifted in their seats, their eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. The elder leaned forward, his voice calm, too calm. "You exaggerate, Commander. Humans are dangerous, yes, but they are not unstoppable. Our fleets are vast. Our weapons are strong. We have prepared for centuries. They will not break us." The leader stepped closer, his shadow crawling across the polished floor. "Prepared?" His voice rose. "You are not prepared. You think of humans as you think of yourselves. You believe they fight for power, for pride, for conquest. But you do not understand. They fight for survival. They fight for their blood. And when they fight for their children, there is nothing in this galaxy that can match them." The chamber grew quiet. Every word struck like a hammer. "You speak of myths," the elder said. The leader's eyes narrowed. "No, I speak of memories. I have seen their wars. I've watched their ships fall into fire only to rise again. I've seen their soldiers wounded, broken, yet still marching. They do not surrender. They do not fade. And when you touch what they love, when you harm their young, they become something else, something no council can control." The younger councillor, who had spoken before, raised his voice again, softer this time, hesitant. "And if they come? What then?" The leader turned toward him, his expression grim. "Then you will learn what others learned before you. You will learn why entire empires no longer exist. You will learn that humans do not fight fair. They do not fight for glory. They fight to end the enemy." The chamber fell into silence again. Some of the councillors looked uneasy now, their scales shifting faintly, as if heat pressed against their skin. But the elder only scoffed. "Words, nothing more. If humans come, we will meet them in battle, and they will fall, as others have fallen." The leader stared at him, his anger cold now, sharp as ice. "No, others have not fallen. Others have vanished. Their names erased, their worlds burned to ash. That is what happens to those who provoke humanity. That is what happens to those who forget the stories." He stepped back, his voice lower, but every word heavy. Mark my warning, you caged human children. You crossed the only line that should never be crossed. And because of that, the war is already coming. You cannot stop it. You cannot hide from it. You can only wait for the moment the stars go dark, and you hear the sound of their ships in your skies. The younger counselor shivered. The elder remained silent, but his hand gripped the armrest of his throne tighter than before. The leader turned and left the chamber. His footsteps echoed like distant drums. Outside, the city was alive with noise. Traders shouted in the markets. Ships lifted from docks. But beneath it all, there was a whisper growing stronger, a whisper of fear. Beyond the citadel, in the vast emptiness of space, the whispers became signals. Human colonies were no longer silent. Messages of rage filled the channels. Soldiers armed themselves. Fleets stirred. The galaxy felt the shift, like the slow pull of a great storm. On a distant station, alien merchants spoke in hushed voices. "Did you hear? Humans are moving their ships," another replied, his eyes wide. "It is only rumor." But the third shook his head. "No, it is true. A scout saw them. Their ships are black as night, silent as death. They are not myths. They are real." Back on the human colony, where the first message had been heard, soldiers lined up in rows, their eyes hard and cold. Their commander walked before them, his voice strong. "They touched our children. That is all you need to know. There will be no mercy." The words spread like fire. Across worlds, across systems, humans prepared. Some polished weapons. Others whispered prayers. But all carried the same fury, the same burning fire that the alien leader had tried to describe. He stood alone on his balcony once more, staring at the stars. The city behind him was alive with arrogance, but he knew better. He could almost hear it already, faint in the silence, the thunder of human engines moving through the void. He whispered to himself, a final warning that no one else would hear. "They are awake now, and nothing will put them back to sleep." And in the darkness between the stars, the first human fleet changed course. Its destination, the Council's world. The first signet began quietly. A single outpost near the edge of space sent a signal. The message was short, broken with static, but its meaning was clear. A patrol ship had vanished. No distress call, no trace, just silence. At first, the Council ignored it. Ships disappeared often in the borderlands. Pirates, storms, accidents, space was full of dangers. But then, another report came. A convoy of traders had vanished on a clear route, a route patrolled daily. Their beacons never returned. Their families sent cries across the networks, demanding answers. The alien leader heard these reports, and his heart grew heavier. He knew the truth before anyone else dared to say it aloud. This was no accident. This was the beginning. In the markets of distant worlds, whispers grew. A miner on a lonely asteroid claimed he had seen it, a shadow moving across the stars, larger than anything he had ever known. Its shape was jagged, unnatural, as if built not for beauty but for war. "It was black," he told the others, his hands shaking. It moved without sound. "My sensors did not even register it. But I saw it. I swear I saw it." They laughed at him at first. Then another trader came with the same story. And another. Soon no one laughed. The whispers spread like fire in dry grass. On a small military station, alarms blared. A squadron of scout ships had been sent to investigate the silence near the trade routes. One by one their signals faded. The last message was only a voice filled with panic before it cut into static. "They are here. Black ships. Engines without light." The Council still argued. Some said it was lies, tricks spread by humans themselves. Others said it was impossible. No fleet could move without being tracked. But the leader remained silent. He stood by the great windows of the citadel, watching the stars, knowing the truth. The first real sign came soon after. A fleet of Council warships traveled to a neutral system to show strength, to prove to their people that no danger existed. But when they arrived, they found wreckage. Not wreckage of human ships, wreckage of their own. The debris drifted silently, torn apart as if shredded by invisible claws. Entire cruisers had been split open, their cores burned cold. No survivors, no signals, only silence. The commander of the fleet sent a final transmission before his ship also vanished. His voice was hoarse, filled with fear no soldier should ever carry. "They are here." They do not speak. They do not answer. They only destroy. Then silence. The council could no longer ignore it. Fear began to seep into their voices. They held meetings that stretched into nights, their words filled with denial and desperate plans. But the people of the galaxy had already decided. The humans were awake, and nothing could stop them. On distant worlds, families looked to the stars with dread. Merchants locked their ports. Soldiers whispered prayers before battle. Even the bravest warriors felt their scales grow cold at the thought of facing what came from the dark. The alien leader moved through the city, hearing the whispers in the streets. He saw the fear in the eyes of the people, though they tried to hide it. Children clung to their mothers. Merchants closed their stalls earlier than usual. Priests spoke in hushed tones about ancient prophecies, stories of a race that would rise in fury and burn empires with their wrath. At night, the leader walked to the prison chamber where the children had once been kept. It was empty now, but the cold of that night remained in his memory. He could still hear their cries, their small hands clinging to the bars. He could still hear his own voice roaring for their release. He knew then, as he knew now, that the line had been crossed, and above the world, hidden in the folds of the void, the first human warship arrived. It was vast, black as the space around it, with lines of steel sharp as blades. Its engines were silent, glowing faintly like dying stars. It did not broadcast its presence. It did not signal. It only watched. The station near the planet did not even detect it until it was too late. By the time the alarms rang, the ship was already above them. Soldiers scrambled to their stations, weapons aimed at the void. But there was nothing to fire at, only darkness, endless and consuming. Then, without a sound, the human ship moved again, vanishing into the shadows as if it had never been there. The soldiers on that station did not sleep again. They told their commanders what they had seen. The reports spread, and though the council tried to bury the truth, fear was stronger than lies. The people now knew. The humans had arrived. The leader stood on the balcony once more, watching the stars flicker. He could feel it deep in his chest, like the pull of a storm. The first sign had come. Soon there would be no denying it. He whispered into the night, his voice almost a prayer. They are here, and across the galaxy as ships vanished, as whispers turned to cries, everyone began to believe. The fury of humanity. The sky above the council world was calm that morning. Traders filled the markets, children played in the alleys, and soldiers patrolled with heavy steps. The council had ordered parades to show strength, banners fluttering across the streets to remind the people that fear was weakness. But beneath the calm, beneath the false show of power, unease grew like a shadow no light could chase away. The alien leader stood alone on his balcony, eyes fixed on the stars. He had not slept. He had not eaten. He had waited. And as the dawn light broke over the city, he saw it, the faint flicker in the sky, unnatural and sharp. At first, it looked like a star burning brighter than the rest. Then it grew, it spread, it multiplied. One by one, black shapes emerged from the void. Massive warships, silent and cold, their hulls swallowing the light around them. They did not roar with engines. They did not flash with weapons. They drifted forward like shadows alive, filling the sky, covering the stars. The alarms rang across the city. The banners of the parade were torn down as soldiers scrambled to their stations. Towers of defense lit up, their weapons glowing. Civilians screamed and ran into shelters, their fear boiling into chaos. The council called for calm, but their voices shook. The leader whispered to himself, words he had spoken many times in the silence of his mind. They are here. The first strike came without warning. A defense station in orbit burst into fire, torn apart by weapons too fast to see. Its light burned for only a moment before it collapsed into silence. Then another fell, and another. The human fleet did not announce itself. It did not speak demands. It did not ask for surrender. It only destroyed. The council shouted orders, their voices filled with panic. Warships lifted from the docks, sleek and heavy, the pride of their fleets. They charged toward the humans, their weapons glowing bright. But when the first volley was fired, it vanished into the void, swallowed by shields no one could understand. The human ships moved as if guided by ghosts, shifting with precision, breaking through formations like knives through paper. The battle lasted less than an hour. The Council's fleets were torn apart, their wreckage falling like rain across the skies of their own world. The screams of soldiers echoed through the channels, then were silenced one by one. From the ground, the people watched in terror. They saw the sky burn with fire, saw ships fall like broken wings, saw black shadows moving above them like gods of war. They knew then that the stories were true. The humans were not myths. They were storms, living storms, and nothing could stand against them. The leader moved through the palace halls, his steps heavy. He found the council chamber once more. The thrones were empty. The elders had fled into hidden tunnels, their pride shattered. He looked at the empty seats and felt no pity. They had brought this upon themselves. He turned to the wide windows and looked at the children's cages below, now broken and empty. His voice was low, but it carried a weight that filled the silent room. You touched their children, and now they touch your world. Outside, the first human ship descended into the atmosphere. It moved slowly, its vast frame casting shadows over entire cities. The people below fell to their knees, some crying, some praying, none daring to speak aloud. The ship did not fire. It only hovered, silent, watching. Then a voice broke across the channels, cold and steady. It was not a roar of anger. It was worse. It was calm. Our children were caged. We are here to take them back. You have only yourselves to blame. The words spread across every speaker, every system, every screen. The people trembled, the leaders hid, and the humans did not stop. City after city fell into silence. Not all were destroyed. Some were left standing, untouched but frozen in fear. The humans chose carefully, striking with precision, showing that this was not conquest. This was punishment. The alien leader stood in the shadow of the great window, his chest heavy. He had warned them. He had told them what would come. Now as the skies burned and the ground shook, he saw it with his own eyes. In the streets the people whispered. Some cursed the council. Others cursed the humans. But all knew the truth. The galaxy had changed. The humans had risen, and nothing would ever be the same. The leader closed his eyes for a moment, listening to the sound of destruction, the silence between the explosions. He felt no pride, no triumph, only certainty. Humanity had shown its fury, and the galaxy would carry the scar for generations. When he opened his eyes again, the sky was black with ships. The stars were gone. The night had come, and it wore the face of humanity.